Hey YouTube, it's Mark here again with Mike, and today we're going to compare the Xbox One S and the PlayStation 4 Pro, and we're going to give you the pros and cons of both, and kind of we're not going to tell you which ones to buy or anything like that. You've already made up your mind, really, but we're just kind of the upsides and the downsides of both of them. We're going to be kind of fair to each, and I want to start out with the Xbox One S. Now, I do want to say that neither of us own one, but we both have the original Xbox One. We both have some serious issues with it. And we both already know that the only difference really is HDR and 4K Blu-ray.
Right.
So
So you can kind
I'll go ahead and let you. What are some of your upsides to the Xbox One S?
well, the upsides I would say your biggest one is the inclusion of the 4K Ultra Blu-ray player. So your PS4 Pro doesn't have that. If you got a great surround sound system, you got a new TV that does the HDR and 4K, you're going to want to showcase that off with some awesome Ultra Blu-rays.
Hell yeah.
Of course, these Ultra Blu-rays are going to be even better looking, even better sounding than the original Blu-rays. There's going to be a huge difference. So to have your gaming system be able to do that is pretty cool. You can throw in those movies and games.
Plus, it's like $250 for an Ultra
Yeah,
Blu-ray player. I mean, you know, that's like a no-brainer, like the PlayStation 3 was for Blu-ray player back in the day.
yeah, and that was a big reason why back in that time I originally got a PlayStation 3. Yeah, I was going to get it for gaming as well, but RB1 Blu-ray was huge then. There was such a difference between DVD and Blu-ray. You wanted to see these movies in Blu-ray, and they had it in the gaming system. So, yeah, big pro on the One S. That's a huge win over the PlayStation for them. Um, Very odd choice of Sony's to not include their own technology, Blu-ray technology owned by Sony. Really odd to not. There's theories, and they'll tell you one thing, but no one really knows why they didn't include it. But they didn't. So if you don't have an Ultra Blu-ray player, definitely something to think about if you're deciding which of the two to purchase, or if you want to upgrade your original One S or your original Xbox to the Xbox S. Something to think about. You will get that Ultra Blu-ray player, and those on their own are running between $200 and $300. So it's a great price point. So yeah, that's a big pro on that. Other pros, I mean, I can't really say there's a whole lot else that really makes the Xbox stand out. Other than that, of course you have your exclusives games. There's a few, although in this day and age there's very few exclusives anymore. You do have your Gears of War 4, which is fairly highly rated. I bought it, picked it up. Awesome game, very definitely worth it.
I do
Your
have my own issues with that game,
Yeah,
but
but
that's
yeah,
a
and
that's a
I do.
whole nother animal there.
It is. It's a whole. I do definitely have some issues, but if you were staying up with that franchise and that storyline and whatnot, yeah, you're only going to get that on the Xbox. The
Yeah,
same goes with Halo, and Halo is near and dear to my heart. I will always own a Microsoft machine almost exclusively just to play Halo. I have to.
yeah.
I
No,
have.
I agree. That's why I got mine when I did. I knew Halo 5 was right around the corner at the time, and um,
Yeah.
I I got mine brand new for $200 at a what would be like a kind of like a discount store. But man, I do have
That's,
a negative that we'll talk about when we get to the downsides. But I think one of the upsides for me actually is the exclusives that they have. Um, One game in particular for me, which I'm very surprised it didn't make the Game Awards, is Quantum Break. That game is so incredible. The visuals are amazing, and Remedy, they their rendering engine was tweaked so much that it's kind of hard to believe it, but they render it out essentially at 720p. Then they
right.
upscale it to 1080p, and then they add effects over the upscale to kind of hide it, and it works so well. It's
Yeah,
so good. And
that's an awesome. That's part of our another conversation we'll get into. Is it's just really nice to see developers doing new things and finding ways
to
to
make
take.
the hardware work,
Yeah, exactly. And to really show us something next generation that's
Yeah.
really different than what I mean. Why did we spend three, $400, $500 on these machines unless we see something new? And it's cool to see developers like Remedy stepping up and really using some of that power.
Yeah. And one of my favorite features of that actually is the integration with a television show. Now, I don't know if you've played it, but your actions and decision making in the game, you'll get to a certain part and it'll say, like, do you want this or this? And depending on if you're choosing A or B, that's the episode you're going to watch that ties in with what you're doing. And then after that episode, you pick up right after there. So you can play the game probably 10 different ways, and each time the story's different. I mean,
It's a very
probably the same outcome, but
yeah.
the middle is going to be different. And I just think that is amazing.
Yeah, again, it's nice to see someone doing something different,
Yeah.
and doing it different in a very well way. That I mean, even the little TV show that's part of it, it's a pretty high quality show. I mean,
Yeah. And the thing that I really love about it is they made the show the way the effects are with the TV show. They kind of lit it in such a way to where the actors and the actresses match the actual game characters almost to a T. I mean, everything works so perfect.
they made it seamless. It
Yeah,
really is between the TV show and the game. So for the first time that's really been done, I got to say they did a really good job on it.
yeah.
It'd
So,
be neat to do that some more.
um, essentially we have exclusives. We got the HDR and 4K Blu-ray player. I don't
Yeah,
know of any other upsides really.
I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but as much as I've loved Xbox in the past, there's really not much else I could say to someone who asked me, what should I buy or should I upgrade? There's really not much more to say about it. Yes, it's white. It's a little bit smaller. It's a little cleaner looking. It's not the huge honking bookshelf holding beast that the original Xbox One
It's
was.
quieter. You can have it vertical if you want.
Yeah. So, but again, are those things
That
worth another
yeah,
300? Nah, not really.
yeah.
Not got money to burn. So,
So how about some downsides? I know we share one in particular.
downsides for me, right off the bat, is the user interface.
Yes.
I mean, we've said that before. We've talked about it in other videos. It is just a complete mess to me since day one, and they've done very little to improve it for us.
Here's what Greg and I had talked about this on a previous episode of All Things Gaming. The interface to both of us really is as if someone sneezed and it went all over the screen,
Yeah,
and the manager came by before they got to clean it, and wow, that is so good looking. We're using
yeah,
that. And the designer probably quit because he's like, you're picking snot all over my screen. I don't get it. Okay. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it looks like someone sneezed on the screen or maybe puked or something.
you're using the Xbox UI to me, the interface. You can almost see the executives standing over the guy's shoulder who made it, designing this thing. It has no developer intelligence in it. It has nothing to make things easier for you to find and navigate. It reeks of people in suits in Microsoft saying, we need to sell this Windows Mobile look.
Metro.
We need to have this Windows, these tiles look, go through all our products. Who cares if it's a mess? Who cares if gamers can't find one game from another? It reeks of that business-minded design rather than a gamer-minded design.
Yeah, and I don't care if their TV's not touch screen. We got to put
Right.
this in there.
Yeah. So for me, biggest downside by far is the UI. I mean, to this day, I can barely find D&D games. I can barely find arcade games. And then if I even do download one, I don't know where it went to. It's mind-boggling. It doesn't go to the main screen. It goes up in other tabs, and I've got to go to my games. I've got to find my games. I got to filter through that to
Yeah, there's
find the
like 5 different clicks to get to one thing. Whereas
exact.
I'm going to use the PlayStation 3 as an example. You knew where to go, and there's your games.
Yeah, and if you get
And
a
the
new,
most recent download would be at the top. And to me, that
that's
was pretty damn good.
haven't we done that for years? I mean, it just makes sense why they decided to.
The wheel wasn't round enough.
I guess, they, but and that's something that you should fault Microsoft for. I fault them. I can understand if they released that initially, but 3 years later, come on,
Yeah,
Microsoft,
with several updates even. I mean, they had the spring update, and they had one recently that added the whole like Windows 10 compatibility,
right?
and I'm dumbfounded how horrible it is because Windows 10, mind you, is actually pretty damn good, and I'm a
Yeah,
Mac user, so a Mac user saying, "Hey, Windows 10's not bad,"
it's not bad.
but the Xbox doesn't do it the same way. Hmm.
No, not at all. No, it's so that's my biggest downfall on it. But between the two, it is a little bit less powerful.
Yeah.
Obviously, are you going to really notice that side by side with the base PS4? Not really. Are you going to notice that against the PS4 Pro?
Now,
Yeah,
you know
it's going to
what?
be a
I
big.
will say this. This is an upside, which actually depends on which one you're comparing it to. If you compare the 1S to the PS4 Slim, which is just 1080p,
Yeah,
the 1S in some cases actually is better because even though it's not rendering at 1080p or I mean, what is it? Sometimes between 720p and 900.
yeah, like
But it's
920.
but here's the thing: it's upscaling it to the 4K hardware. Using the hardware to upscale it, so it's going to look good on a 4K TV. You have nothing to worry about. The PS4 Slim, I do not believe does that. It's just 1080p. Here you go.
But if you're comparing the 1S versus the Pro, though,
Big
now
difference.
different ball game because the Pro is going to be native 4K gaming, no upscaling, and there's going to be a much bigger difference between those two.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so those are my downsides. I mean, I don't really, and I'll say another downside for the Xbox One S is I personally just don't care for the look that much. It's just smaller. I didn't care for the look of the original Xbox One. It's not premium feeling to me. It doesn't feel and look like a three, four, $500 product. It's got clumsy, just silly LED lighting. It's very bright in a dark room. It's just a white light. The controller has just a white LED light when you turn it on. It doesn't look next generation. It doesn't feel next generation. And if you're playing a game in the dark, you almost have to put a piece of black tape over that stupid Xbox light on your controller because this
Yeah.
thing's up in your face. You're trying to play Dead Space or whatever it may be. So
You can
that,
use the damn thing as a flashlight.
that and again, that just seems to me no one with any actual design for usability, the user was thought of in this stuff. They just oversights on little things that actually do make quite a bit of a difference. So that's a downside personally for me. It doesn't look premium. It doesn't feel premium. It just looks and feels like something that's a little bit cheaper, feeling and looking. And I think they could have done a better job for a next generation product. And I think PlayStation has done a much better job. And we'll get into that with the PlayStation stuff. But
Yeah. Now I do have one downside. However, Microsoft kind of has remedied it in the past. Kind of depends how you look at it. Their internal hard drive is not user upgradable unless you mod it and break your warranty. But So if you buy, let's say, the 500 gig model like I did, you're stuck with that
Yeah.
unless you use external media. And then here's where this could be an upside or a downside, I suppose. The internal drive is slow. Number one, it's 5,200 RPMs. Number two, it's on a SATA 2 connection. We've known that since it come out, and it sucks. However, with
Yeah.
USB 3, you can put in a solid state drive if you want and use that, and it's much faster than the SATA 2. So
Right.
that part's good, but the internal drive to me sucks ass.
And then
And
you got like me, who's not. I mean, I'm not doing any of that. I think most users are not switching out their pieces of their gaming system. They just want to buy something that's good and set it down and be done with it. And yeah, it sucks that your stuff is slower and it is not the quality that it should have been. I don't think.
but see, here's where my point is. When I bought my PS4 back in 2014, within that first week, I bought a 2 terabyte notebook drive. And Sony supports it. You
Right.
open the door, you take your drive out, you put the new drive in. You have to reload the OS, but that's a very painless, easy task. And then there you go. I had a 2 terabyte PS4 that they actually still don't sell.
Yeah.
So,
Well, they made it easy.
yeah, now for a downside later on, for PS4 is they don't support the external drive. So, I mean, both of those, the hard drive systems can be upside or downside depending on how you view it.
And what you're going to do with them. Yeah. I mean, how much stuff you're going to download and view. And
Yeah,
I,
exactly.
yeah, so that's pretty much it for me on the Xbox. I mean, you got some exclusives. You've got a little bit better than the original one. I mean, it's a little smaller, it's a little quieter, but not much more going on for me personally. Do I own an Xbox? Yes. Will I upgrade to the S? No. I'm really not. I don't see any need to personally for me. I'll wait for this.
Well, yeah, I would probably wait for the Scorpio. You could still buy your 4K Blu-rays now because they all come with a regular Blu-ray as well. And
True.
your
Yeah.
PS4 Pro will upscale Blu-rays to 4K. You just won't have the HDR.
Yeah, well, and yeah, it still unfortunately won't be native 4K, and the upscaling does make a difference. So, yeah, but I don't know. You want to talk PS4 Pro now?
Yep, we're gonna. Yep.
All right.
So
Uh,
what downsides do we have?
we'll start with downsides. Again, not. It's almost like the opposite of the Xbox. I can't really think of a lot of downsides for the Pro. Maybe the controller. It's still not as the leader of Xbox. It's still not as it doesn't. Your hands never really hold it as well as the controller. I think since the Xbox, way back in Xbox One generation, their controller, when they finally went to that smaller controller, I think they call it the S, the small or whatever, they just blew the market out right then. That was it. That was the greatest controller ever made. And since then, we haven't seen much of a change because it's still to this day the best controller is the Xbox controller. PlayStation, so that I'd say it's a little bit of a downside. Not as good, but they have bridged the gap quite a bit.
Yeah, if you compare it to the DualShock 3,
Yeah,
huge improvement.
so it is much improved. It's not better than the Xbox controller yet, but it is much improved. And I will say this though, that downside does come with kind of an upside is the look and feel of the PlayStation controller is better than the Xbox for me personally. It does feel it feels more expensive. It feels more intuitive. It looks more expensive. It's got different textures throughout it. Again, it looks like more design went into it than the kind of a cobbled together controller of the Xbox. The lighting is not blasting in your face like the Xbox lighting. You got the sleek little blue line that comes across that you can hardly see. It just looks next generation, and it feels pretty good too. So that's kind of an upside and a downside. It feels more expensive, and it feels a little bit better than the Xbox One, but not quite as good just from a gameplay standpoint yet. They still have invested Microsoft in that. So
Um, one downside, I think, for me, and we've talked about it before, but I want to make sure it gets put in there, is the lack of the Ultra Blu-ray drive. I mean, that for me, that's like, if I'm gonna go out and buy a 4K TV, I know a big portion of why I'm buying it is because of my movies, and I think I'd rather upgrade the Xbox just so that I could have that drive. But at the same time, I'm not so sure because I also want VR, and
right,
so it's hard. But
yeah,
um,
that I agree with you. That's a huge downside for me too. Is
you
not
just
including.
got done spending like $2,500 or
Yeah,
more on your entire setup, and you
that's the
can't you
thing.
can't watch 4K Blu-rays. I mean, that's like a smack in the face.
It is because you're buying a $2,000 TV. You've got to then upgrade everything. You got to upgrade your receiver for your surround sound. You got to upgrade maybe your cables, maybe not, but you got to buy a new gaming system. So yeah, you spend all this money, upwards of $3,000. In here, you can't even throw in the newest, latest, and greatest looking HDR 4K Blu-rays. I can't do it because now I got to go spend another 300 to buy a Blu-ray player or the Xbox One S. So
Yeah.
huge downfall on Sony's part. That's I'd say my only real complaint with the PS4 Pro is the lack of Ultra Blu-ray drive.
Now, on the upsides, and this goes for any of the PlayStation 4 models, is the user interface.
Huge.
I do have some issues with it, but for the most part, I think what they did was they took the PlayStation 3's cross media bar and they just added to it. They gave you more information, and they gave you a couple extra levels. So you have your main set of bars, right?
Yeah.
And so like right there, you got your PlayStation Store and your like probably the game that you played last and whatever. So you can go through there just like you would on the PS3. But also where the levels come from are you can go up and then here's a whole set of levels, or you could have gone down to get information on the certain categories that have extra information.
Yeah.
It's
So for me,
extremely easy to navigate.
I didn't own a PS4 until just now. I just that my This is my first kind of foray into the PS4's interface is with the Pro. So I can't compare the two, the Pro
They're the
versus the
same. They're
this.
exactly the same. Minus in the settings, you have the extra features for HDR.
Right.
I have HDR as well, but I can't use it. But you also have more selections when it comes to the resolution.
But so this is my first time using the PS4 Pro. It's almost as mind blowing as it was how bad the Xbox One is. It's even more mind blowing because the PS4 Pro is so much better. It's intuitive. It's easy. Like you were saying, I've got my options up here on one level. If I go and download a game, a new game, remember how we were talking with the Xbox? I don't
Yep.
even know where the game went. I've got to go through tabs. I've got to go through options to find my games, my apps, and there somewhere in the mix is the game I just downloaded. On the PlayStation, I download something, it's immediately front and center. It's right there. All the games I've downloaded in order, right in front of my face to get to easily. So huge difference there, much easier. And then even the PlayStation Store. If I want to go, one of my favorite parts of gaming are these AAA independent games. And on the Xbox, you can't find them. They're mixed all in with all the other Call of Duties and Halos and stuff and AAA titles. You have to sift through all that to try to find these indie games. In the PlayStation Store, very clearly marked PlayStation Arcade games, the independent games. And on top of that, if you do pick on one and download it, you're going to get other recommendations either by the same company or that are like that And I've found 3, 4 games that I never would have known about or downloaded just from the recommendations being so good and intuitive in the program. They've got extra purchases from me just from that. So
And you haven't even had the system that long.
I've had it for like a week, so it's intuitive, and I'll talk about too. I always come back to that the PlayStation feels so much more next generation. This is what I thought we were going to get 3 years ago when the Xbox One came out, and it cost $500, and it was supposed to be next generation, the future. They threw around space age technology. I remember they threw around with the Kinect. This is what I wanted way back then. You started out in this beautiful blue screen. You've got colors. It's kind of waving and swirling in the background. You kind of have this pleasant, futuristic kind of undertone, this music that comes through. It all comes together to feel like you picked up a futuristic product, something that really is powerful, is sleek, can deliver new age technology, new age entertainment. It just has such a premium feel that where the Xbox is just, like we've said, almost a complete mess. I've been very impressed with the PlayStation's take on it. Trying to make you feel like your $300, $400, was well spent.
Yeah.
You got a piece of equipment that.
Now,
And,
I don't know because I don't use it as much, but I don't know if the Xbox has custom themes, but the PlayStation 4 does, and they're animated and they look cool. And then, like, your interface sounds will change based on the theme. Like, for instance, I have the Uncharted 4 theme, and like in the background, it's have you beat the game yet?
no, in fact,
Okay,
I
well,
haven't.
I won't spoil it then. But like the
Yeah,
background shows a scene that's in the game,
right.
and there's like animated parts from the game, and it
It,
just loops and stuff.
the PS3 started that, and I remember that
Yeah.
back then they did that, and it was cool. And
Well,
yeah,
this has stepped up a little bit, I think, and
4K
it's
scenes.
it's
I saw.
it's just awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, and again, going back to that, just that premium feel. Like if you click on a game, if you're signed into the network, which I'm not signed in here, but if you just pan on one, you can go down. The screen fills with a picture from that game. You even get music from the game. It's seamless. It tells you about it. It just has these options, these feels, just this quality experience
The
that,
social aspect even is bigger.
yeah,
Like if you go down and it gives you the information on the game and everything, then there's also a section where is there anyone streaming it? And usually they'll show you like whoever has the most active watchers, but or maybe one of your friends on there has they're streaming or something, and it'll show it. As far as like streaming and watching people's streams go, I think PlayStation actually wins in that department. I've never streamed off the 360 or 360. It seems like a 360, doesn't it? But
no, but yeah,
uh,
yes, do that. It's okay, but again, it's not as seamless. It's not
yeah, I
as
mean,
the
for
control is.
for for Sony to actually include a share button on the controller and make it that simple to start and stream,
Pretty cool.
when I stream onto my channel, I do it to YouTube. I have it set up. I just hit that button and away I go. It's that easy. And you want to quit, hit the share button again, and then you can save it, and you're done. And it's that easy. That's to me, that's an upside for
Yeah,
regardless of what version of PlayStation you're on.
definitely a better user interface. The machine itself, I think, looks a lot sleeker. It looks pretty cool. The pros need it's got the 3 tiers rather than just the two on the machine itself. Very sleek lighting, just very minimal. It's not glaring in your face. You're watching a dark movie. The Xbox is like a spotlight from the controller and from
I
the
can see
machine.
your Xbox One's light right now.
From here. The PS3, it's just enough. It's just well done. It's thought out. They took the time. you can see the design in it, whereas the Xbox looks just like a brick. It's ridiculous. So that's another pro for the pro here. It's just and I'll say, even if you want to just get away from that stuff into the games themselves, exclusives, you got Uncharted, is a huge one for pro. That's why I was originally going to get a PlayStation 4. But even it's interesting how the shift has went from the 360 used to be, that was the developers for these independent games really came into play with the arcade.
Yeah.
There was awesome games every week coming out. Really allowed the indie guy that doesn't have a huge studio to make really artistic and beautiful and really neat games that did very well, sold a lot.
Like for instance, Braid.
One of the best.
Fantastic puzzle game.
Yep.
That like
Right.
ushered the indie category really, and
Yeah.
now it's more like, well, I mean, there are indie games on the Xbox. They're just a little harder to get to.
Well, and that's my point is. It's very interesting to see how Microsoft, who kind of fostered this entire movement of independent game makers, is almost completely missing in the Xbox One. There are very few, if any, the exclusive independents that I can think of off the top of my head for Xbox. So now the shift is PlayStation is the only place to find a lot of these incredible games. I mean, I just got about 3 or 4 of them today. Vanishing of Ethan Carter, Dear Esther, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. I mean, these are rated 9 out of 10s, 10 out of 10s. A lot of the places. There's another horror, Soma, Soma, horror futuristic game. These independent games are only on the PlayStation. So if
And
you're
something that's actually really cool too is with PlayStation Plus, they give you free games every month. But usually how it works is you'll get a AAA title and you'll get an indie title. And then on
yeah,
PlayStation Vita, which you probably don't have, but
no,
you're pretty much getting 2 indie titles, and usually they're really good.
good one. They're not.
Sometimes you'll get a AAA title there, but the Vita these days is an indie kind of platform.
Yeah,
But that's the thing. Like, their free games are really good, and they're introducing you to an independent developer that their game probably sold pretty well, but Sony knows they could do a lot better. So then here you go. We're gonna give it for free, and everyone's gonna see it and want it. And I don't know how much money Sony spends on free games, but they're definitely giving some independent developers good recognition with that.
yeah. So yeah, if you're a fan of that stuff, I mean, this is the only place to go. I've got hours and hours ahead of me. I can't wait to play some of these awesome games and that are PlayStation only. So huge pro. Personally for me too, because I love those independent games just as much as I love the AAA stuff. So
Sometimes they're better, but
sometimes they're better.
it
Well, look,
depends, obviously.
well, there's not an independent per se game, but what's the new one that's out by the creators of Ico and Shadow of the
Oh,
Colossus?
The Last Guardian.
Last Guardian. I mean, that's PlayStation exclusive along that line of kind of indie storytelling type games. You used to see that stuff on the Xbox, and now it's all PlayStation.
Yeah.
You know.
So for another upside, I mean, we could list on and on and on and on all the exclusives, but just to name a few that are coming up, you have Horizon Dawn, which looks incredible. You
Yeah.
have the new God of War, which will be coming out, which also looks incredible.
Yeah.
You have Gran Turismo Sport, which for me, I love racing games. That game looks incredible, and since you have the beautiful HDR 4K TV, what IGN had said in their preview is that the headlights will blind you, that they're so
Right.
bright. Now, this is actually really cool. Uh, the 4K HDR TVs today They only go up to about 1,000, maybe 2,000 nits, which is pretty bright for a TV.
Absolutely right. Oh
But
yeah,
here's the thing: Gran Turismo Sport is actually being programmed to go up to 10,000.
that's
Their
crazy.
HDR goes up that high. So when TVs do eventually get it into that realm of extreme brightness, let me blind you and burn out your retinas, they're already ready for it.
But yeah, and it's if you hear that, it may sound like, well, do I need that? Is that it sounds ridiculous, right? Who wants to be blinded
Yeah,
by the?
you don't need it, but it's
Well, no, it's kind of neat though the way the HDR really does make that. It does make it more lifelike in that a headlight, like you said, it will almost make you squint, but just where those headlights are, and it's not walking.
yeah. No, that's the thing,
Very
and
neat.
Gran
Awesome.
Turismo Sport will definitely utilize. You're gonna see the big contrast difference, but in the
Yes.
sections where it's supposed to be, not filling the whole screen and essentially blurring everything or drowning it out. So we got that particular game, which
And I,
I'm excited for, and then here is an upside for PlayStation, regardless of the version. PSVR. I mean,
huge.
I know Microsoft has some stuff up their sleeve, but let's just face the facts. Right now, they don't. They don't have it out right now. They haven't even announced it really,
Right.
which I think is kind of silly. They really should announce more information on the Scorpio with some VR stuff. Maybe they're going to have it where Oculus is compatible, which then we got, a little bit different story there, but they haven't said
Yeah.
anything. So that set aside, PSVR, now I have not had the pleasure to try it yet. However, I did go to a demo. I had the headset on. It feels incredible. Of course,
Yeah.
that demo unit was broke for whatever reason, which sucked ass.
Yeah.
But I know that it's supposed. It actually, from what I'm reading, they're saying it's the second best out there, with the exception of it being the best headset as far as fit and
Yes.
form.
Yep.
Uh, so I've used the HTC Vive, and I can tell you that VR is amazing, and PS4 or the PlayStation VR is just. I want it mainly number one, and this could be a downside for some people, but this is probably more on the preference, I think. I don't have the space to set up cameras and various things to walk around in the environment. Now, I would love to, but I live in an apartment, and this room here is my game room. I
Yep.
have a desk and shelves and whatever, and I don't have room to just go walk around. So, PlayStation VR, which is meant to be used in your chair, is what I want. I
That's
want
what
to be
I
able
want.
to fly spaceships, drive fast race cars, whether it's in Gran Turismo or whatever racing game. You know, that's what I want. I want to be able to look around. I don't.
But it's a game changer though. VR, they finally got it right. So can you imagine playing like, let's say, go for a different route, Resident Evil 7?
Yeah,
I mean, you're right there in those dark hallways, stuff's jumping right in front of your face. I mean, that's a complete game changer of the experience.
yeah.
And
Nah, I'm
PlayStation,
interested to wonder how it's gonna work though, because I do know some people get motion sickness from they're sitting in their chair and they're with the controller they're moving forward or walking
right?
in the game, but here you're not, and it kind of screws with your mind a bit. Now, having used the HTC Vive, I personally I'm not going to have that problem, but I know
Right.
that it is possible for others.
But yeah, I think that's just a case by case basis. I mean, if you're susceptible to motion sickness, maybe this isn't going to be such a great thing for you. But
Yeah. Now
I
I
think
will
from
say, a friend of mine, he is one of the founders of I think it's Cloudgate Studios. They made the game Island 359, which I haven't had the chance to play it because I don't have a Vive, but man, it looks awesome. And they did something to combat that motion sickness, which no other developer's done. And what that is, it's kind of like a point and click to where you want to go, and you teleport there, so that you don't have that motion that you know.
Right.
And I think if Resident Evil does something similar to that, you're not going to get anyone that's going to be sick from motion. If anything, you're going to be sick because you got gross looking zombie like creatures in your face with their,
Yeah.
whatever. So,
I can play it at night alone. I can't imagine what the VR would be like. Can you imagine like Silent Hill or something? I mean,
well,
it'd be
yeah,
cool.
I mean, I think honestly, this is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, whatever they're calling it, really. Um, it is going to be something else. Let me tell you what.
So again, I mean, listen, Microsoft maybe next year might, but if you want VR now, PlayStation's the only way to go.
Yeah, and it's
And
it's rated very, very good too.
it will say the Pro, you're going to get a better experience because it does handle the VR better. You're going to have higher resolutions, better frame rates. So they are saying it's going to go better with your VR experience to have the Pro. And I say that goes into yet another upside on the PlayStation Pro part is it is more powerful than the Xbox One S. So all these newer games that are going to be coming out, Mass Effect Andromeda, even now Final Fantasy 15, future games that are cross-platform, you're going to get a much better experience on the PlayStation Pro coming from that increased frame rate, increased visuals, kind of ultra settings, that the Xbox just isn't going to support for another year until they release their new machine. So if you're looking at the two, any game that comes out for both is going to be a much higher visual
Yeah, and
experience.
actually, that goes for whether or not you have 4K TV or just a 1080p. Because if you have a 1080p TV, what they're going to do is they're going to do super sampling. So they're going to render it in 4K and then downsample it to your 1080p. And
Instead of performance,
what that's going to do is essentially you're not going to have any jaggies. It's going to be like incredible anti-aliasing, and that's just that is one benefit of it.
but I think
Another upside, really.
with the holiday season and the prices on 4K TVs, 4K HDR TVs, they've come down so much. I think a lot of people, like myself, are going to be upgrading this year. And if you do, man, the only way to go is get a Pro to match that TV. That's how you're going to showcase these new games. That's how you're going to really enjoy your new TV and get the best out of these games. Is going to be only through the Pro. So I'm extremely happy that I got it. I can't wait to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I'm excited myself. I mean, I don't have one yet, but eventually I'll get there. It just
Yeah.
kind of waiting for the right time. I'm personally I want to get the VR first, and then kind of upgrade later. But
That's the next thing. I gotta wait on that. I gotta get that too, but we'll see.
yeah,
Um,
so but I think we got a lot of pros and cons, upsides, downsides, whatever anyone wants to call it, really. However, in some cases, there really weren't very many on either side. I will say that personally, I believe they're both good machines to own um,
sure.
for their various reasons, especially for that one word, exclusives. They both have their set of exclusives that really, in my opinion, are must haves. Like to me, you'll always have Halo or even Gears of War on an Xbox. And yeah, those are great games to have. But Quantum Break is Xbox only. And to me, it's one of the best games to come out on a Microsoft system in a long time. And you know what? I just thought of this too. Is one upside for Xbox, regardless of which version you have, is their backwards compatibility that they've been doing with the 360, and that right there in itself is a reason to have, because you no longer have to have your 360 hooked up. Unless of course you're running a game that's not compatible yet. But they've been adding every week,
Right.
essentially. So it's
No,
only a
it's
matter of time. In fact, Phil Spencer did say that their goal is to get all of them pending developer approval.
right.
And then the other thing that he had said is once they feel that they're to a part, they would love to bring back original Xbox compatibility, which would be a lot easier to do because it's x86 runs on Windows already. Can you imagine that? That would
It'll
be
be interesting to
incredible.
see.
That would
Yeah,
be incredible. Um, and then to top that off, a downside essentially for PlayStation is that it cannot play PS3 games.
true.
And because of the architecture, I don't think it'll ever happen.
No, I don't think so either. There's just no way.
PlayStation 5 might be able to if they leap with power, but
Yeah,
even then, the cell processor was so complex that I don't see it
I don't.
happening.
Yeah, I don't see the architecture working together. Yeah, I don't see it either. So,
Yeah, so that's why I'll always have my PS3 hooked up.
mhm.
One of the things that I'm doing, I've said it before, is I'm going for a complete set of PlayStation 3 games. That's I'm gonna need a lot more shelves and wall room, I think, but
Wow.
but so anyway, I think we're good to go there, and hopefully everyone had a good time. And I'd love to. I know we missed some pros and cons. Obviously there's got to be more, and I'm sure other people have their own versions or whatever. Um, I know, like for me, I don't have the Connect, and quite frankly, I don't really give a shit about it, except maybe as a webcam if I was playing, let's say like Halo or Quantum Break, and I'm streaming. But
Right.
it doesn't. I don't know.
I
But
have got it with day one. I've
see,
never used.
the downside is if you get the Xbox One S and you want to continue using the Kinect, whether you use it or not, I don't know. But then you got to get the USB dongle for it, and it's just kind of dumb.
Sounds like an Apple product.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Microsoft has kind of copied Apple in the past, with some
Yeah.
computer stuff. So I guess they're copying them. Hey, let's dongles,
Why not?
dongle gate.
I love it. I love it. All
So
right.
yeah. So anyways, you know, thanks for tuning in to this episode of All Things Gaming. Uh, I'd like to say thanks again to Mike for joining us. It's always fun having various people come in and talk video games and tech and multimedia and showing us the past few videos your gear and explaining HDR and 4K and various other things. Next time we join up, probably be in a couple weeks, and it'll be into the new year probably. Maybe we're going to be talking about something brand new that hit the scene, and I don't know. Maybe there'll be a
Well,
surprise.
I'll have more experience with my Pro. I'll let you know. Maybe I'll see some of the differences between the Pro exclusive visual enhancements on games. I'll have a little bit more HDR info for you as I kind of play with things and check things out. And yeah, it'll be fun going forward to see.
Yeah,
Well,
and hopefully by that time you'll have completed Uncharted 4. And maybe even I know you've played The Last of Us on PS3, but maybe you'll have played it in 4K with HDR, and you can maybe explain what the differences are.
yeah.
Because unfortunately I won't be able to see that, but
Well, with
it'll be
the
interesting.
news of the Last of Us 2, I figured I'll probably go revisit the
Yeah,
first. I'll have to play through it, so I will get the updated version of it. I'll check it out.
I could be wrong, but I think you can pick it up at Best Buy for about $20.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and if you have Gamers Club unlocked, that's 20% off.
Yeah. Sweet.
So,
Okay.
like always, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and when you do, hit that little bell so that you can get the notification. And of course, share. Um, would love to also get some comments. Uh, we'll be hitting up the comments with replies and get some conversations going on. We like doing that, and like always, happy gaming.